Have you been reading The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead? You need to. Welcome, Apples and Chalk viewers, to our book review of Colson Whitehead's The Underground Railroad. This awesome novel was published in 2016. Stick around as we give you the real tea on this amazing novel. When we talk about the real tea of a novel, we take a look at the real-world application potential of the novel, the entertainment level of the novel, its appropriateness, the length of the text, and lastly, the topics that can be discussed when you examine and analyze this text. We're going to start with a brief summary of the text. No spoilers will be placed inside of here, although I might mention a couple of things that cause you to want to read it. This story chases the life of its main character, Miss Cora. Miss Cora is pretty much a third-generation slave, and she is entrenched in the life of the African-American slave, of course, in America. Now, this is a story you want to follow because it has several twists and turns. So I won't give away what takes place, but we are going to talk about its potential for real-world application. This story brings up so many topics that are still hot in America today in 2017. One reason is its historical accuracy. Colson Whitehead did a phenomenal job researching what took place during the time periods inside of the text, from the actual slave trade to those slaves being sold in America, and then the things that they went through in plantation life and seeking freedom in the North. This text requires you to ask yourself, and if you're a teacher, ask your students, how do we come up with our ideas in America about what's morally and ethically okay? Are there people who are really inferior to us? And if so, how do we treat them? Are there people who are in political power who have inferior or superior views of other genders and other races? And do they cause certain things to take place? Do they cause people to have mentalities that hurt and harm others? And that's what you see inside of the text. Again, this book has so much potential for real-world application. It poses moral and ethical questions that as a teacher or student, you can really look at and closely examine and see what Colson Whitehead wanted you to know after analyzing the text. As far as entertainment is concerned, this book, not one novel, in my opinion, holds a candle to this book. It is extremely suspenseful. There are moments where emotion is bubbling over. There are times that make you want to cry, times that make you want to clap, cheer, shout, and maybe even hide for yourself. This is done because Colson Whitehead creates extremely dynamic characters and creates and paints these pictures of environments and settings that the characters are in that are, again, extremely real. There are frightening times inside of the story, and these will really engage any reader, especially the student. With the book, the appropriate things to consider: appropriate sexual content, appropriate romantic content, appropriate language, especially the use of the N-word or any curse words, and violence inside of the text. So the Underground Railroad doesn't have or isn't littered with several sex scenes. However, there is sexual content. Two particular moments. There's a moment mentioning rape, and there's also a moment of intimacy towards the end of the text. Now, the words Colson Whitehead uses to describe these two events are really going to catch the attention of the reader. If you are a teacher, you want to make sure you explain those moments and don't just leave it to the mind of your student to kind of contrive what takes place inside of those moments. As far as vulgar language, there aren't several curse words, but there's the use of the N-word and a lot of down talking to the characters throughout the story because of the topic, which is slavery. So you want to be mindful of that. Lastly, the use of the N-word. Be very attentive to the use of the N-word. Several times they use it in the context that it was used during slavery, but there are people whose chill bumps really raise up, and students especially who aren't comfortable with hearing this or saying this. So set the context and the expectations for your classroom whenever you discuss the N-word. We don't want to forget about examining the amount of violence inside of this text, and there certainly is a lot of violence inside of this text. One of the reasons, again, is because the topic is slavery. There was violence on several sides of the spectrum. If you are reading this as a class, you want to make sure that your students aren't necessarily necessarily cheering at certain things that take place. Again, just reel it in with the values and beliefs of whatever organization or school or even who you are. You want to look at those things very closely and intently and not take those ideas far or start any wars. So we've talked about the real world application potential, we talked about the entertainment level, its appropriateness, and now we're going to look at the length of the text. It's about 306 pages long. That's the hard copy that I have. If you do about 20 pages a night, you'll end up reading this book in a little bit over 2 weeks. That's no time, especially for how entertaining it is. And for a teacher, that's excellent because you're able to read the entire novel truthfully. You're able to develop your lesson plans and all types of things that can come with it. Again, it's a short and very entertaining read if you just pace yourself as you go. We want to look at the topics that are discussed. Slavery, freedom, God's role during slavery, the evil of mankind, the goodness that is inside of mankind, the role of the woman, the role of the slave, superiority versus inferiority. These are topics that you can discuss in your classroom and for students really dig in with an essay. Colson Whitehead does a great job in establishing patterns throughout the text so that all of these topics can be followed. A consideration before reading this text, make sure you assess the climate of the place that you want to read this book. You want to make sure that there's not a lot of racial tension, and if there is and you choose to read this book, make sure you set your expectations for what you all should do concerning race wherever you are. You don't want to start to perpetuate any negativity, and I'm sure that's not what Colson Whitehead's intentions were when he created this book. Thank you so much for tuning into Apples and Chalk's book review of Colson Whitehead's The Underground Railroad. Please like this video, subscribe to our channel, leave comments and questions so that this conversation can continue. We look forward to hearing from you.